Hi everybody, this is Vincent and you're on my podcast, Hanging on Sunset. Well, it's time to get deep and talk music with another incredible artist. Today we have Ben Gray, the lead vocalist and guitarist of the LA-based indie rock band Dear Boy, joining us for a special episode of Hanging on Sunset. Dear Boy has been making waves in the indie music scene since their formation around 2011, with their dreamy sound and influences from post-punk, new wave, and alternative rock. They've released several EPs and one full album, earning critical acclaim and a devoted following along the way, and I can testify. Yes, I've witnessed that devoted following when I saw them last year at El Rey. It was amazing to see a grassroots band get to that level, because selling out a place like El Rey is not an easy thing. And they've done it alone. Until very recently, they didn't have a label. They did everything themselves, and it took them where they are now. So it's pretty impressive, and it gives a lot of hope to all the indie bands around trying to achieve the same thing. In this episode, Ben takes us on a journey through the band's story from LA to England and back to LA. From their early days to their latest release, Forever Sometime. We'll dive into the creative process behind their music, the challenges they faced as a band, but that's not it. These conversations went even deeper than just music, but that's not it. These conversations went even deeper than just music, and that's what makes it so special. Ben and I explored some philosophical subjects, discussing the very meaning of life, the nature of creativity, and I guess the importance of the human connection. And we connected. I can tell you that. We had an immediate bond, and that's why this conversation went on nearly 2 hours. I know. It's crazy, and it's the longest interview I've ever made. Actually, it wasn't an interview at all. It was really a conversation between two people that are passionate about music and, most of all, trying to make sense of this really terrifying existence that we're all living now. Needless to say, I was really impressed, blown away by Ben's insight. And I felt like I met a new brother. Also, quick heads up for all you music lovers out there in LA. Tomorrow night at Genghis Khan, Ben Gray will be performing as a solo act. And let me tell you, you don't want to miss it. Not only is Ben a fantastic human and musician in his own right, but he's also opening for the incredible Scout Gillett, who we had the pleasure of interviewing on our last podcast episode. So if you're looking for a night of great music, be sure to head over to Genghis Khan tomorrow night and catch Ben's solo performance and Scout's amazing set. Trust me, you won't be disappointed, because those two artists are my favorite artists right now. Now sit back, relax, and get ready for an unforgettable episode of Hanging on Sunset with Ben Gray of Dear Boy. That was really cool. But I like when they come here. And usually, I know your PR said you didn't want to perform.
Not, I sometimes yes, but today, if that's all right.
Yeah.
Okay,
no,
cool.
I understand. Yeah. I know it's. I'm not going to argue with that. But sometimes people, they do perform, so it's also cozy.
It is very cozy.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of times you don't know what the situation will be, but I will come back and play for you another time.
Oh, I'd love to. Or we can even, because we're talking with Matthias, who's the David's assistant, and he's a good a videographer too.
Mm-hmm.
And we were thinking about starting sessions on a boat.
Oh, fun.
We were talking about that
Yeah.
this morning. Like, he knows someone with a boat. Maybe we can do the Marina Del Rey
Yeah.
boat sessions.
Oh, that's cute. Yeah, that's cool.
I don't know, like
Yeah.
you know, like in the like La Blogothèque. You remember? Those?
Yes, of course.
No, they're still active, so they're still doing stuff. Actually,
Yeah, that's right. I actually saw someone post about it today.
it was a storefront
Yeah.
church.
Yeah.
that was opening for you at El Rey.
Mhm. Yeah.
I
That's
guess
right.
we started this podcast.
Oh,
now.
cool. Cool. All right. Great.
Hi everybody. Sorry we're in the middle of the conversation, but I think we hit it off very well with Ben Gray, right?
Yes.
The leader of Dear Boy, LA band, but with influences also tracing to the UK.
Mhm.
Right, a lot of your influences
Yes.
are English, and I will just list a few of them, like The Cure, New Order, House of Love, Pulp.
Yes, Pulp
like
is-
that's something that I heard, you know, in your music, Roxy
Thank you.
music, which is okay, different. The Jesus and Mary Chain, that's the band that you're band in the family of these bands.
Mhm.
Is that okay to say
Yeah,
that?
absolutely. Yeah.
So, now that I introduced you, sorry, I'm a little confused now because we started talking and it was cool, and now I realized I didn't even started the podcast properly.
I like it like this.
Yeah, me too.
You
Actually,
start in the middle.
You know, I don't like interviews. I like conversations.
Exactly.
So we were just saying that we might just do a session on a boat with
Mhm.
Ben sometime soon.
Yeah, it'll be my first maritime performance. So fingers crossed.
So how are you today?
I'm great. I'm so happy to be here.
Thank you so much for coming to our offices, which is more like a house. And David, who's hosting us, the boss label of Team Nowhere, or you know, label sister,
Yeah.
as I call it, has turned a house into an office. I usually don't talk much about the location we are, but we were just talking about that
Mm-hmm.
with Ben, and it's just good to be in a cozy environment when you're creative people.
Absolutely. No, I don't think I'm going to leave. So just tell your landlord.
Okay, no, you're fine. You can stay here. Then nobody stays here at night. So
I've got a lot of stuff, so I'll call the movers.
and we got guitars and basses and workstations where you can demo your songs. Photo studio. So there's that.
You're selling it. I'm already in. There's already yes.
And just selling it to our listeners. So I discovered your music recently.
Mm-hmm.
I went to a show you perform at El Rey,
Yeah.
and it was really amazing.
Thank you so much.
Your music was amazing, your performance too. The opener was magical too.
Yeah.
Storefront Church.
Oh yeah. He's great.
It was a great night of music.
Thank you so
And
much.
I did some pictures there, and I enjoyed it.
You're an incredible photographer. I know I already said this to you, but just so everybody also knows.
Thank you. And I take pride in only doing like film photos.
Yeah. That is something to be proud of.
That's my vintage self-talking. Like I need to not see the picture that I took in the moment that
For
I
sure.
do it.
I love that. I really respect that.
And then, you know, it's just this magical process of developing at home.
Mhm.
I don't do it all the time. And when I'm doing something serious like taking pictures of your band, I'm going to the lab. But
Wow.
sometimes I still do it at home, and that's just magical. You spend like 20 minutes like moving
Yeah.
chemicals and stuff, and then at the end you don't know what's going to happen. Sometimes you fuck it up and there's
Yeah.
nothing, and it's just in your memory forever.
I love that. That's such, because it's like, it's such a, I feel like it's such a more like sacred experience too, to just not have to choose between 200 photos. Like
Yes.
this is what your instincts told you to shoot and how to take the
Yes.
photos. So I think it's very cool.
And I realized too that the fact that you know, it's a little pricey, the rolls right now
Right.
in film, so you don't take as many pictures as you would if you're
Right.
like shooting on digital.
Right.
And it's usually better actually because you care about every picture you
Exactly.
take.
Absolutely. Yeah.
You have to.
Well, you can sense in your photos too that you care. Like I mean, usually with any creative person, you can always tell immediately if that person cares about what they're doing. Like whether it be a photo or like, you know, at a restaurant, it's like you can always tell. And so when I saw your photos, they were very disarming because they were immediately great, and my whole band felt the same way. So
Thank you so much. That's the best compliment you can say to me.
it's true. It's just true.
You might be hearing some noises and laugh, but in the room just aside our podcast studio, they're having a meeting right now. It looks like they're having a lot of fun. I think they're developing a movie or something.
Cool.
Well, we'll know that after the interview. You just released your debut album.
Yes.
But you're a decade-old band.
Yes.
So that's quite a journey.
Strange. Yeah.
And the record's called Forever sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it just takes forever to,
That's right. That's
to
true.
make an album. And I can relate to that because the listeners may know that I'm in a band too, and it took us 10 years to make our first album too.
Really?
We released it last year.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Happened. We used to joke and said we were doing our Chinese democracy.
Exactly.
You know,
We did
the
the
Guns N'
same.
Roses album that took forever and then was, I think people didn't like it.
Right.
I'm not a huge fan, so
Well, I would hope people like yours.
I hope too. I hope. Seems that the ones who like it they're few, but they really like it.
Cool. That's important.
And I love your record. I'm so
thank you so
happy
much.
that you brought it. You
I
brought the
did.
vinyl.
I did.
I'm holding it in my hands right now. It's beautiful.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I never go anywhere empty-handed. It was either that or like a baked good. Yes.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much. So, LA-based band, and you were born and raised in LA.
I was.
That's right. You're one of those people.
I'm one of the 20. Yeah. It's weird. I feel like I have exponential pride from being here. I don't know, like the longer I play music, the more and more I gravitate towards other people who are also from here. I feel like we all find each other.
Mm-hmm.
And the people from Los Angeles, I just feel like this is kind of an intense way to start, but I feel like, you know, Los Angeles has a weird reputation in the world, but I feel like most people who come here, who give it that reputation, come here for something. And I feel like for us, like a lot of people in music, like we just were here. It's like where the stork dropped us off. And Los Angeles to me is so great and so rich culturally for reasons that people don't know unless you live here. And now you've lived here for 10 years, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, you know what makes Los Angeles great, and like its pulse pump.
I'm curious to know what is your answer to that. What do you think it is great? I have my own theory, but
yeah, I mean, I feel like I don't want to say anything that sounds too too cavalier, but I feel like to me it feels like the center of the universe. But the reason I say that is just because there are things that happen here creatively, artistically, culturally that are I think this is one of the last places that something truly underground can exist, because there is sort of a top layer of what LA projects as being, you know, what it is and why it's great and why people come here. But like that veneer kind of allows for true subculture to exist. Mm-hmm. So like for us, when we're talking about our band, I feel like part of the reason it took so long to make our record is because we were functioning as like a truly underground band, like in the truest sense of the word, you know, like I think the way people find music now is very part of a very like similar trajectory, you know. It'll be like it's on this blog or it's on this playlist or I found it this certain way. And for us, we were developing in a way that was, you know, invisible. And I think, you know, when you mention Storefront Church, it's a similar thing, you know, and Marcos Faca, who opened the El Rey show. Like, these are artists who have made kind of a scene and an identity for themselves in this community that hasn't been in a mainstream or even just sort of like a ostensibly indie way. You know, it's like true subculture. And that's true with food, that's true with film, that's true with painting, it's photography. Like in LA, it functions as it appears to be the center of the earth, but really the coolest stuff that's happening is underground. And I feel like this is one of the last places where that can actually happen.
I see what you mean, and maybe because so many people here come for creative reasons.
Yeah.
And sometimes when you are not working in the mainstream because it doesn't work for you, you're forced to develop your own art.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
But there's possibilities that it's still sustainable, and you're the proof of that.
Thanks, man.
Because you made your own, you carved your own path.
Thanks, man. Thank you. Well, I would be curious to ask you too how you feel about. Well, first I guess I would ask, do you love living here? Do you like LA?
Yeah, I love it.
Okay. When did you love it? Like, how long did it take you?
I guess there were different phases.
Right. Yes.
Because I came with a dream, I guess.
Of course.
Coming from France, I had an image of the US,
yes.
of LA. And immediately when I landed, my vision shifted.
Yes.
Of LA.
Right.
And you start seeing the cracks.
Exactly.
Of course. And all the negativity around the US.
Right.
And
yes.
And LA. But soon I realized too that if LA is a monstrous city, which is true, it means also you can do your own LA.
Exactly.
And that's what I love about this. It's plastic.
Right.
But in a good sense of
I know what you mean. Yeah.
It's both senses.
Of course.
It's both meanings. And the good sense is if you love something, you'll find something in LA to express it, to nurture it, develop it, and you can ignore the rest.
Exactly. You're speaking to me in exactly my language, because I feel exactly the same way. I feel like the thing about Los Angeles is that the falling in love with it is exponential in phases. And I think the longer you're here and the more open you are to what is great about it, you will find something, an opportunity to really kind of create your own universe within it. And I think Los Angeles has tools, and I think a lot of people don't know how to utilize them.
Yes.
I think people leave quickly if it's not for them. And I think if you can adapt and understand like what this place actually is, you can really do special things. So when I know it's the longest answer to your first question, but I feel like
I like that.
I know we'll be here like 7 hours. No, but I do feel like when I do have a lot of pride being here now, because I do understand and feel deeply passionate about the city and growing up here, and being an artist from here who's truly from here.
And it's fascinating, like every day I'm on those roads. Might not be the most beautiful roads in the world.
Yeah.
But I can almost see the Hollywood signs from my house.
Yeah.
And it's still crazy to me.
It's so crazy, I know.
And I guess even when you were born here, at some point when you're young, you must realize, oh my God, but everything I see on TV is made here.
Yeah, I know.
What's happening
I know.
here?
Yeah, it's weird. Like the Hollywood sign still is a thing. I don't know why. For me too. Like, it kind of just is sobering every day. You're just sort of like, oh, cool. Yeah, I know where it tethers you to something cool.
I guess it means also the dream is not dead inside of me. Because if I can still resonate, seeing this side, and it's not just this side, but sometimes like you realize you're in a part of the city where something was shot, and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm in that movie now.
Right. Well, can I say something to you also? I feel like what you just said is also correct. Like, there's an image of, and this speaks kind of to the grander point about music and why we've been a band for so long before we made a record and before we signed a record deal. There is an idea of, making it, or whatever the hell that means. And then there's the other thing, which is the purity of any sort of art form, which is, it doesn't matter if I make it in terms of whatever someone perceives that to be, but it's like
commercial success.
Right. It's like when you talk about, even when you were mentioning your record, you were like, the people who do find it and love it, if that needs to be like the core principle, like that needs to matter to you the most. And so when you talk about seeing the Hollywood sign, I feel the same way when I look at my band on stage, where I'm just like, I still get to do this with my best friend, like literally my best friends. We were doing this when we were getting, no one was coming to our shows, when we had no one paying tickets or paying for parking or whatever. We had no interest, but it was like, we got to play songs for people, we got to connect, we got to have these singular experiences. And that was always enough. You know, we were always ambitious because it's something that we want to share with as many people as possible. But for us, it's always been the core principle, which is the experience and the work, and how special our bond is. And so that's kind of what LA is too, where it's like people are here to make it, and then there are people here to make cool work and do it for whoever finds it. And I think that's why I'm proud to be from here, because it kind of redefines, like, or we understand why LA is cool and why it's a good place to make work.
I agree. And I think to expand on what you're saying is the fact that maybe it's just growing older, but realizing that the journey is the most important thing.
Exactly. Yeah.
The work you do, like
Yeah.
you just stated beautifully, that's what you should care about.
Yeah.
And not if you make it or not, but
Exactly.
why you make, but
Exactly.
also the human experience of it, because in the end what's going to be left is like memories.
Exactly.
And you have to be able to create the most beautiful memories, and
That is it.
and it's just the people you're sharing this experience with, you
Yes.
know, like being a band, for example.
Mhm.
Your bandmates,
Yeah.
that's something very important.
Absolutely.
My wife is a bass player in my band, so that's
Oh, you didn't
another
tell me
beautiful
that
thing.
part. That's a beautiful thing. Oh my God, what a special thing to do together.
Yeah, and you know, sometimes people are like, "Oh, how have you been a couple for so long? I'm
Yeah.
struggling." I'm like, maybe if you share passion with someone,
Yeah.
it's easier.
Exactly.
I don't know if it's true for everybody, but definitely my band still exists to this day because I guess it's also us, you know,
Right.
the two of us creating something together.
That's a wonderful thing. I'm very happy for you. That's very cool.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And when did you start like realizing that music was very important in your life?
Early. I mean, usually that is the answer. I mean, it was early, but I didn't know that would be what my life would be until later. I mean, I was in bands since I was 11. So I joined a punk band when I was here, growing up in the Valley.
Nice.
Yeah, I was in. We were good. We were a band called Noise for No Reason, and we had some pretty crazy opportunities.
I read that you opened for Fear at the
Yeah,
Whiskey when
we
you were like
opened-
12.
Yes,
That's
you read
crazy.
correctly. Yeah, which is, I think this is probably the other side of LA, where when that happens to you at 12, you don't question that as weird. You know, that just that opportunity is sort of, it presents itself, but you're a kid and you're like, well, yeah, of course. You know, of course we opened for Fear. I mean, we're playing music, you know, whatever. And so I was guitar in the band. I sang a few songs, but I was very insecure about my voice. Like, I made fun of a lot because I had just like this castrato, like high voice. So people would make fun of me when they heard me sing. So I had this negative conditioning early. So I tried to make my voice sound very masculine. So I became kind of like a mutt singer, and I was very insecure. So I was in bands all the time, but I never shared the songs I wrote. What my way into music was, I was a fiction writer. Like, I loved writing short stories and English. Like, I was an English major, and that was that's what I was really into. But when I got into college, I just found the right people and started writing songs, and I dropped out and started this band, and that's how that happened. Yeah. It was weird. It was the coalescing of everything I liked. Like, I always loved performing. I used to be like kind of doing monologist. I was like doing a lot of storytelling, and then music, English, and performing, like, it just made sense. And I don't know why I started being courageous enough to kind of explore my own voice and present it and refine it. And it took me a long time to get comfortable with how I sounded and how I wanted to perform, but
So you started the band with Keith, right?
Yeah.
Who's still in the band? Who's the drummer?
Yeah, he was.
He sings too.
He does. Yeah, he's my guy. He's my guy.
How old are you when you start? What would become Dear Boy?
We were in a band together before this for a second, and we realized pretty quickly that it wasn't what we wanted to do. It was a misunderstood like power pop band, and
a misunderstood power pop. That's a good headline.
Yeah, we were like our influences were things like, I don't know, we were into like Ozma and the 3 O'Clock and like, you know, Paisley Underground stuff, and we were trying to do this thing with fuzz, but everyone thought we were like a pop punk band, and it was just a nightmare, and we were just like, well, this isn't gonna work. So we just moved. I knew of somebody in England who was a booking agent, and I emailed him, and he said, well, come to England, live here, I'll get you work visas and just see what happens. So that's what we did. And it was Keith and myself, and then 2 of our other friends, and yeah, it was the craziest time ever. That's how Dear Boy started. But we moved there. I say that every time I hear myself say this, I always feel kind of embarrassed, because it's like, it's such a standard American thing to do, to be like this Anglophile and think like, oh yeah, I'm just gonna move to England, you know, like, and it's like, but yeah, I know, it's like, it's just so funny, because when I say it, like, at the time it was so romantic, and you know, we had no money, and we were just like, oh god, I have this flat in Putney. But Putney is like, you know, it's like by the river, and we just romanticized it so much, and now thinking back, I'm like, oh my god, it's such a like, kid thing to do.
But also it's very formative, and
totally.
I mean, I can relate exactly to what you're saying. The difference is I stayed here.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Totally.
But I guess it's the same reason. Sometimes you need to see something else.
Yes.
You know, just for your life experience.
100%. And I do think, like, we always just use the phrase, we would refer to ourselves as desperate to be displaced, and that's kind of how we thought about it. Like, we had kind of grown tired of LA at that point, you know, for whatever reason, in our own formative way. Like, we just were like, this isn't correct for us now. And so we moved there, and we just kept getting evicted. You know, like, I had a bank account in England, so they would rent to me, but then I would say it was only me, and then I would smuggle the rest of the band in, and then they would find out, and then we'd kick us out, and then I'd find a new flat. But while we were there, you know, we wrote like 50 songs, and we demoed them in our shower, and like we would get gigs places, and we would learn, and we were kind of figuring out what we wanted to do. And
it was the Scarlet Grey.
That was my old band, yeah. And it was what a journey that was. I met my wife. We met at my first Scarlet Grey show at a pizza place in Long Beach. So it's really funny, like, when people have, you know, when people think about when they met their partner and how romantic that was, like, it's just such a funny thing that it was at this pizza place.
I love it. You know, today people they meet on Tinder, I guess.
It's true. Yeah, it's true. This is I prefer this. Yeah.
I met my wife. She's French too.
Okay, cool.
And she was here on vacation in LA.
No way.
And somebody who met her at a party said to me the next day, "Oh, I met the woman of your life." You never hear that.
Are you kidding me?
I met the woman of my life. No, that person said to me, "You need to meet this girl. She's a musician, you're a musician, you should do music together." I was like, well, I just moved to the US, so why would I want to meet a French girl, you know? And she was the same. She was
right.
Pushing hard, like, I want to meet some cool surfer dude.
Right.
And eventually we did, and I invited her to play with me the next week. I booked my first show in a very small art gallery on Melrose.
Oh my!
She accompanied me and played backing vocals.
Get out of here!
And that's how we started the band, actually. And she didn't leave. She stayed.
I'm pretty struck by the fact that there was someone who told you, that someone who
Yes.
knew.
That's weird. And I didn't know much that person because I just arrived. It was another French guy.
That's
I met her
incredible.
At the party, and it was like certain of it. It was like, I know you guys are meant to be together.
That's
You need to meet.
incredible.
So he was my algorithm, I guess.
What a compliment. That's incredible. What was the gallery on?
It was called Neon
Yeah.
Venus, something like that.
It's right where I live right there.
Oh, really? It still
Yeah.
exists?
Well, no, I know exactly where it is. I don't think it's called that anymore, but I live off of, well, I shouldn't say, but
Yeah. Don't.
here's my
leave
exact,
your address.
here's my social security. That's a beautiful story. I love that.
Yeah, I mean it's incredible, and it's to this day it's amazing every day, more and more.
I'm so happy. I'm so happy for you. That's so cool.
Thank you. Let's go back to England for a second. So you start writing songs for Scarlet Grape. It's gonna become Dear Boy
Mhm.
soon, and I guess you had to. So it wasn't easy in England, and it was sometimes really hard. And I heard you were at some point very homesick and felt bad on a Thanksgiving night, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And something happened.
Yeah,
like in the movies again.
Yeah, this was a cinematic thing. I mean, it was difficult. It's a difficult place to be. It's a difficult place to be. We had nothing, so it was very hard for morale too, because two of the members of the band, they didn't stay in the band too, we knew that too, so like when I'm sure you've experienced this too on tour, you can always tell, like sometimes someone in the band realizes it's not meant for them.
Mm-hmm.
And
because it's hard.
It's very hard, and it's something that has to be, immediately if it's for you or not, and it's a very specific set of, I don't know, emotions and principles and things that keep you sane and happy and invigorated when you're touring.
Mm-hmm.
But when someone's not happy, that's just such a contagious thing. And when we were out there, that was kind of the main thing, like Keith and I, and our bass player was pretty psyched, but we had a guitar player who clearly didn't want to be there, and that's the difficult thing. Like,
He was from here too, from LA?
Yeah, he was from San Luis Obispo, and he joined last second. Like, we had a ticket to move to England. We're like, do you want to come?
That's
and he
crazy.
was like, sure. And so, so it was difficult. But when we were there, we were dejected on Thanksgiving night, and we were just sitting around this table at an Italian restaurant, just like everyone was doing that thing of imagining what their families are doing that night, and like what their home looks like, and like the lighting, and being like, oh, that must be so fun. And it really things like that elucidate how far away you are and how alone you are. So it was pretty silent at our table, and I don't know why, but the server came up to me, and we'd barely spoken, and she just said to me, she's like, things are gonna look up, dear boy. And that's
that was it.
And that was it. And we knew, because when we moved there, we were, we knew we were starting a new project. We didn't know what it was going to be, but once we had kind of the name, it gave voice and gave direction to the songs we were writing. We knew kind of what it looked like, what it felt like, even though our music was influenced by all these British artists that came before us and that were happening at that moment, and we knew that our voice was still Southern California. Like, we knew that our perspective with those influences were like, we also knew at that time, like, oh, we shouldn't be here anymore. We knew, like, because at that point we were there for like 5 or 6 months, and we were just like, we have to go home, because everything we had taken and that whole experience that colored our work, we're like, we can't finish it here. Like, we're guests,
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, so we moved home, and that's when Dear Boy really started to become a thing. Like, we recorded immediately, and we knew, like, oh, these songs are cool, but like, it's not right yet. Like we knew how to work then, and so we lost 2 members amicably. They were just like, we can't do this, and I was like, I know you can't. And I asked Austin to join, who I knew from another band, and he fit in perfectly, and then we just sort of got to work.
So 2 things about what you just said. First, like trailing on what we were saying before about romanticizing somewhere else.
Yeah.
You know, and that being a fuel, something to nurture your desire for new experience.
Right.
And sometimes we were talking about LA and people coming here every day with that same dream, I guess, to make it, and sometimes reality happens and your dream crashes.
Right.
So you had that romantic idea to go to England, probably fueled by all your references and influences and stuff. But then also something I experienced. Tell me if it happened to you. And it's funny that your story happened on Thanksgiving night, because I never felt so French than when I'm here.
Right. Yeah.
And I'm connecting to things from France that I was never connecting before.
Yeah.
And I guess maybe you're not so big on Thanksgiving normally. You know what I mean? Like but that night,
of course,
it felt something big.
Absolutely.
And I guess now, since I didn't go back,
right.
when I go to France, it's weird because here I'm feeling very French, but then when I'm going to France, I'm feeling very American.
Wow.
A very LA guy.
Yeah. Right.
So I guess you're a sponge, and your culture starts to, and also because you're forced to have your mind works in different ways when you start having 2 cultures, because you adapt and you see things differently, and you're able to take a distance with both worlds, I guess.
Yeah. When you moved, so now LA feels like your home, right? Do you feel?
Oh
yeah,
totally.
So that must be such an interesting feeling too. Like I didn't really, because I had met my wife when we were just dating, but before I moved to England, she didn't come with me, so it was just the 4 of us, because I was like, I'll be here a couple months, and then you'll come, and then we'll, because obviously we're gonna be huge in a second over here, so don't worry about it. But we were both like ready to move out of LA. We were just like, we've had it with the US, we've had it, like, let's get out of here. And then after spending 6 months in another city, it was, once I stepped foot back in Los Angeles, it became so clear to me that I was like, I never want to leave this place. And it isn't about travel, and it isn't about another place and not fitting. It was like, I didn't appreciate how important this place is to me, my work, my happiness, and also like what made me. It's like the things I took for granted about living in Los Angeles like are clear to me now. Almost like coming back from some excursion or something. It was like, as soon as I was back, I was like, oh, this is my, it is like, this is over dramatic, but it is prodigal. It's at the time too, when I came back, I'm like, oh, it's mythic, I'm back. But I'm just,
It's weird to me when I go back to France, and if I spend a whole month there, I'll get homesick from here.
Yeah.
And that's the weirdest feeling for me. Because now I feel like a tourist when I go to France.
That is so interesting.
If I spend 2 weeks there, I'm just fine. I love it.
Yeah.
And I just get to enjoy all the things I miss and everything good about it, about France. Everything I love. First, family, of course.
Yeah.
But also food and wine. And, I never appreciated the landscapes in France.
Mm-hmm.
Now that's why I see myself as a tourist sometimes.
I get it.
I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so beautiful.
I know.
And I'm like, oh, I was born here.
Right?
What's wrong with you?
Totally.
So, but yeah, LA's home, and it's your home too, and your journey as a band really started when you came back from England, but fueled with songs you wrote there.
Yes.
So you had this story with that band that spent a few years in the. Oh, how long you said?
We were there for, it felt like years, but it was only 6 months. So summer to winter. Yeah.
That's still that's okay then.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
All right, and then you recorded your first EP,
Mm-hmm.
which is eponymous,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
Tracked by, I'm reading my notes, Chad Bamford.
Uh-huh.
Bamford, right?
Yeah.
From Spiritualize.
Yeah,
Well,
he did spirit. Yeah, he did.
Spiritualize.
Yeah, the great Spiritualize record. Well, they're all great, but
And interesting enough, mixed by Michael Patterson,
Mhm.
who mixed the debut album of my band, Yard of
did
Fall.
he really?
Yes. So when I was reading this, I was like, oh,
Oh,
that's
my.
funny.
That's crazy.
Yes.
I mean, he's a wild dude.
He's wild.
He's wild.
He's an interesting character, persona.
Oh yeah, absolutely. He was the first. I mean, we got along great, and I still run into him every now and then because we go to similar coffee shops. But he, incredibly smart and
Yes.
but one of the fastest talkers too. Like I remember because I grew up. I'm a chatty person, and I'm around a lot of chatty people. But I just remember if he hears this, he'll hate this. But I do love him, so I'm just gonna. I say this all with love, but when I remember a thing he would do is that he would ask me a series of questions like a machine gun. Like he would say, if he's like, "So what are you doing this weekend?" And I would be like, "Oh, I'm gonna go to the movies. What are you gonna see?" I'd be like, I think I'm gonna go see blah blah. Where are you gonna see it? Who are you gonna go with? I said, what's it rated? Like it would just be like, and I remember being like, oh my god, I don't know my own story. I almost felt like I was lying to him just about like what my plans were. But he did such a great job, and he was the first person that first professional mixer I had ever worked with. So to be, to have the experience of we produced the EP on our own. It was the first time we ever had any money. Because we did a commercial in England. We did a thing for Skype.
Oh.
That's how we were able to fly home, and that's how we were able to pay for the first EP. Yeah, we lived in squalor. Like I can't even tell you. Like we got a call. We were in Oval, and we got a call that Skype wanted to use us because we had a manager there who managed like Robbie Williams and some other stuff. I have really funny stories about Robbie Williams, and
oh, me too.
Do you?
Yes.
Okay, this is crazy.
Very, very crazy stories.
We're gonna get along great. But we got hired for a Skype commercial, and they paid us £20,000, and it was the most money any of us had ever seen. And they flew us all home for Christmas. So we were able to pay for our EP and do everything for the first year because of that.
That's beautiful.
So we went from being completely broke to having £20,000 that we then put immediately into buying gear that worked, buying, we produced it ourselves too. So we had studio time, and we hired Michael Patterson, and we got it mastered by Mike Marsh in England, and it was. My point is, working with someone like Michael was incredible because we were able to hear music back elevated for the first time, and it was the first time I had ever made something where it felt like, oh, this could be in a store. Like this song sounds like an actual song, and but I think it's crazy that you worked with Michael.
And it happened in the weirdest way. I guess it just tells so much about him. So basically, just to put it in context, Michael Patterson he works a lot with Trent Reznor and Nine Inch Nails, and he did Beck, and really great albums.
Yeah, Black Rebel Motorcycle
Black
Club.
Rebel, he produced too.
Yeah, Fisher Spooner too. Yeah,
he's amazing. So I had a friend who was in the band too, who knew him. I don't know how. Oh, Cloak and Dagger, I guess.
Okay, yeah.
And he said to me, we can send the record to him and see if he would want to do it. So I was like, hey, yes, give it a shot, but we don't have money because we spend everything on the production. Like you shouldn't do this. If you're listening to this and you're a musician,
exactly.
Like plan it.
Yeah, I was just gonna
make a budget.
I was gonna jump into the exact same thing. Yeah.
We didn't do it.
Yeah.
So we had like a couple of rounds left or something like that, and we sent him the record, and he's like, I'll do it. I'm like, but we don't have no money. He said, I'll do it. How much do you have? a couple of rounds. All right, do you have time?
Yeah. Yes.
So he got us this amazing deal that he would do it in between sessions.
Yeah.
For our paid work.
Yeah.
Like really, like real work.
Yeah.
So that happened like that. It took us, I guess, a full year to get it mixed.
Wow.
Finished, but the result is so incredible. So
Incredible.
I'm really happy with it.
I'm so happy to hear that. Honestly, he's very generous, and he's also very supportive of new and young artists. Like, he's always been that way. And he was the first, professional to really take a chance on us. Mm-hmm. So it meant a lot. I remember he mixed a Gliss record, which was like my favorite thing he has done. And I remember hearing it. I'm like, can you please just do that? This is the most beautiful record. But that's wild. This is such a small world.
It is. And that's the beauty of LA too, I
Mm-hmm.
guess. And we're just at 40 minutes in, and we're just at the first EP. Do you have time?
I do.
Let me just check my phone, because my wife is coming to pick me up at some point. Just want to make sure she's not locked outside.
This is what always happens. Like, I love talking to people like you. You're so awesome.
Thank you. I love talking to you. Plus, you're very literate, and I love that. And you said you were majoring in English.
Mm-hmm.
That's, to me, says a lot about you too.
Oh, thanks, man.
I wish I could master English, as
Your English is amazing.
Yeah, but I find myself struggling a lot articulating my exact thoughts.
I get what you're saying, but you're incredible. Like,
thank you so.
Yeah.
Thank you. And no, like I was saying to you before. Sorry, I'm making a little interruption, but when David listened to the podcast, said that it's like a therapy. I like that, and I majored in philosophy myself.
Did you?
Yes.
Perfect.
And I guess that's the way I connect all of the things that I love:
Mm-hmm.
words, music,
Yes.
art in general. And as you saw that I love photography too. So I can't just do one thing.
Mm-hmm. Right.
But the podcast and the magazine that I've built around this, it's a really great way for me to make all these things that I love in life interact
Mm-hmm.
at some level, and music is a connection to all of this.
I agree.
But anyway, first EP,
Yeah.
Dear Boy.
Yes.
We're in 2012, 13.
Yeah.
Right?
13 it came out, yeah.
And at this point, you came back from England, but you haven't played a show in the US yet.
Right.
And
That's
you
right.
played your first show at the Troubadour.
Yes, we did, which was a very bold
It's
thing.
a bold move.
It was a bold move. We had an idea that what we were going to do was, so I knew the bookers at the Troubadour because they had been booking shows for me since I was in high school. And so we thought, we were like, you know what? We want to assert that we are a headlining band. And so it was our idea to, we released a bunch of teasers. We had anybody we knew in bands to post that it was coming, that this band was coming. And I remember everyone was like, what is this thing? And we realized we kind of it wasn't a mistake because it's part of our history, but we booked the Troubadour to headline. It's like first show, no one knows what it is, no one's heard a single song. And I remember we sold a lot of tickets because people knew that I was in the band and a couple of other people from LA, and there was this hype around it. But then we realized that we had only 7 original songs and we had a jam cover, and so our first show ever was the Locust played or something. The entire thing was 35 minutes or something. And we realized this might have been a mistake. But it was our mission statement to be we just want to do it differently, and we want to do this whole thing our way.
I love that.
And we wanted to sort of just reject convention, which is something we have always done, for better or worse. But in the same way that we only just released our full-length record, it was we've treated our career and this whole thing as naturally as possible and as whatever felt right to do.
I guess that's how you should do it.
I think like you said earlier, like I don't know if it's for everyone, you know. I think with us too, not to jump ahead, but I think I've said this before, but I think it's an important point, which is modern music. It's like there isn't space to develop anymore, and I think that development, whatever that means, it's like a multifaceted term and concept, but like development is important for a band for a million reasons. Like, you know, things don't just fall off the truck ready to go, you know, like you need to understand chemistry, and you need to like navigate chemistry and songwriting chemistry, performing chemistry, coalescing. What is your purpose? Like, why? I think a lot of bands and projects don't even ask themselves why anymore. Like, why are we making this record?
I love that you're saying that. I guess it's something we've been talking a lot with David as we are like building this new record label.
Mm-hmm.
And so Team Nowhere is already operating in France. We're going to start doing the label here in the US too, probably next year. And we want to be a development record label.
Yeah.
Because right now there's no A&Rs anymore.
Right. I know.
People get famous on TikTok or Instagram.
I know.
If Instagram's still a thing.
Mm-hmm. Right, exactly.
And they manage to aggregate eyeballs, and people, that's what they care about.
Right.
Streaming data, eyeballs on TikTok or Instagram or whatever. And that's just a good reason to sign a deal with artists now, because they already have a community. It's so hard to create a community.
I agree. Yeah, this is the thing. I mean, this is really the big philosophical question, which is what. Not to distill it, but you know, for when we have been talking to record labels since 2015. You know, we met a lot of record labels a lot of times, and the questions every year got worse and worse from their end, which was the obsession over metrics and the obsession over all that stuff that to me is just sort of like cultural pollution, you know. Not to be too coarse about it, but like for us, you know, I understand from a business standpoint, like wanting to work with someone who already has a platform because it's easy.
Yeah, of course.
But it doesn't mean it's good, you know. And like, you know, Oasis wasn't getting signed unless, you know, Alan McGee saw that show. You know, it's like they were playing to nobody. It's like, it doesn't mean it's good just because it's already like there's a following. Like, it's like, oh, that guy's popular, like I wonder if he can sing. You know, it's like that is not the way. And I'm not saying this isn't sour grapes, or like, you know, I'm not trying to knock things that people like, but I think as a music fan, not even as a musician, but as like an audiophile music fan, I'm concerned that I'm not going to be able to find my next favorite artist because of this, you know. So it comes more from like a frustration as a listener. You know, the band's trajectory and my trajectory, I've always known what I was doing meant something to me and the community that we were building. So I was never concerned so much with like, oh, if we're going to sign to Republic or not. Like, the questions they asked me in those rooms, I never wanted to work with those people anyway, because I was just like, these aren't, you know, music people. It's not, everyone's concerned about they would just say words I didn't really like, and it was clear that it was never about the songs. And so, yeah, this is, you know, I can see just by your reaction that you agree with me on this stuff, and it is frustrating. But I do think that what's so important for things that end up being timeless, and the things that end up being special and really, really mattering to people, it comes from perseverance, and it comes from like an asserting of ideals and kind of an exploring of intention. You know, I feel like my favorite artists always are kind of there's a true north, I guess, is the main point. You know, my favorite artists, the people I really respond to and really look up to, there's always a why. You know, what is the purpose of this? Because in addition to, you know, making music and having an audience, all of this stuff is a total privilege. Mm-hmm. And if you have the ability to reach people and to exchange energy and ideas, you need to be responsible with that privilege. You know, it's like, I take this very seriously, and we all take it very seriously. And there's play involved, you know, obviously, but like, the true north of what we're doing is like, we understand that this is a very special opportunity that we have. And so we only arrived at this too because we've been doing this so long, and we've traveled and played and suffered and spent all of our money and taken out loans and time and, you know, experienced really hardships. But we know that this is our guiding true north light thing. We are obsessed with this. This is our, like, our raison d'etre. Like, this is it for us.
So you respect it, and you respect your audience by staying true to yourself.
Absolutely. And you know, you feel the same way with your favorite artists. You're like, you know they do that, yes. And you feel supported by them.
Yeah. At times when I did something I wasn't really proud of after, I felt like I betrayed myself.
I get it. Yeah, no, I get it.
But you talking about intention, it's rare when I do, you know, I've been interviewing people now for, it's 3 years now almost, like 2 years or at least. And yeah, I don't think we ever talked about intention. And now that you're talking about this, I feel like you're thinking like a writer.
Right. Yeah. True. Yeah. I mean, yes. I mean, yes, I do think.
But I'm not saying that to diminish it.
No, of course.
Really,
no, and
a great point.
I do appreciate that. I feel like
a vision, a clear vision.
Yes. And I do think that that's, and the intention doesn't always have to be ultra serious, you know, like as long as the artist, I feel like, has a reason for what they're doing, it doesn't even have to be clear to them sometimes, but you can always tell, like, if the intention is pure of heart, you know, not to sound too.
If not, it's just vanity.
Exactly.
You're putting yourself out there, but for what?
Right.
What reason?
Exactly. Like, I've had conversations with people who've asked me things like, "How did you get this?" or, you know, that kind of thing. Where what they want is an intro email and not really kind of an actual answer. You know, from the reason we have. You know, our band is strange. You know, our trajectory is weird, and I think the industry's always been very confused by us. We've never been a streaming band, like, ever, but we are a huge sales band. So, like, we sell tons of vinyl and tons of concert tickets, and that baffles everyone because
I'm not surprised.
Thank you, but it's like, and
because
people,
it reflects who you are.
Thank you for saying that, and I feel. I receive that compliment because I do wear that with pride now too, because I do know that, as you said earlier, the people who do find you and respond and connect with what's happening, that is why it's so special and so important. So when we do a show and people fly in from all over the world to see us, and they have tattoos and know every word and buy everything we do, it's like, that is so special to me that I don't care what our metrics are. Like, I don't care who's streaming us on Spotify. I don't care. That's someone else's job.
I was so amazed. I don't find another better word for now for describing that. But when I got to El Rey and you started your show, so I was in the pit for 3 songs, just taking the pictures, and then I got to experience the concert from the crowd.
Oh wow!
And I was like, how come I don't know this band? Like, everybody here is so invested.
Thank you.
In that music, and I was really baffled.
Yeah.
Like the connection of your audience with your music.
Thank you.
It is special. The people are. There's a sense of intimacy when I was at El Rey, like between you and your audience. Like, everybody there was there because they love your band, like for real. Like I could sense that, and
Thank you.
And I was like, wow. And I think it was your first like big headline show in LA, right?
It's our biggest one, yeah. I mean,
after the Troubadour back
yeah,
then.
yeah. I mean, it's funny. Like thank you for saying that. That is very meaningful to me, and I think for us, yeah, we had opened for people at the El Rey, but also growing up in Los Angeles, the idea that you would one day headline a room like that, especially like we just signed with a record label, but we do consider ourselves in terms of ethics and our spirit, like we are still very DIY because we are heavily involved in everything we do, and so we don't take it lightly that people would come and give up their Friday night on a Halloween weekend, the busiest weekend you could possibly have a show, and like to be there and present, and it's not lost on us. It's just really not. And I think when you don't have a huge team of people, we never have, we've never had a crew, we've never had big streaming people, or like, we've only had a very small family of people who we work with. The community and the fans and the music is what we have. That's our whole world.
Mm-hmm.
So to be there with people and to celebrate something like this record, which was so long coming, it was a very special thing that I don't think we'll forget ever.
That's amazing. And how do you feel about when you reflect on this journey of 10 years building to this?
Yeah.
Did you feel it grow, the community around you, the support from the fans, and when did you see a shift? Like, oh, now I see that my music is really connecting to people that are really invested into it now.
It's a great question. I feel like I would say early, because we knew within in our own rehearsal space, like we knew what we were doing was cool, and we knew there was something happening, but it was like there would be small pockets of people who would keep coming and we saw that we weren't crazy, like that what we were doing was sort of moving and I try to say this humbly, like if I say any language that sounds presumptuous or like arrogant, like I'm just talking, like, because I feel like I'm in a safe space.
You are.
But I feel like when we knew that we could see that it was more familial, like that our shows were becoming, that we all felt intimate no matter where we were, but that was getting bigger. It was early, honestly. Like I would say probably when we did a residency, the first year of our band, we did a residency at this place called Bootleg, which is sort of
I love Bootleg.
It's legendary.
So
It's legendary, and that's kind of how we felt. We felt our band becoming a band. Like we felt like we were becoming part of the fabric of LA during that month. I think it was September of 2013. Like we felt it growing. By the end of the residency, you couldn't get in, and we kind of knew, because there were label people there, and there were like big agents and stuff there, but we knew we weren't going to be with any of them, and that's not because of our, that's not because it's punk or we were like, oh, whatever, like, but we just knew like, oh, we don't fit with what's happening.
Mm-hmm.
Or like, let's just explore this on our own and see what we can do.
That's bold. Because sometimes you would just want to take the easy way out, because you're insecure.
Yeah, I mean, I think I don't know. I don't know what to tell you. Like we just felt like we could do it our way, and I think we wouldn't still be a band. I mean, I think it's probably the same with your experience, where a lot of bands I know who had a spike of success or outward success early are in a different project, and they don't want to do it anymore because it was just too fast and wrong. It just felt wrong, For us, our trajectory, we've been growing steadily since day one, and
for me, to jump on what you're saying as
Yeah,
your
of course.
experience as a band and this growing trajectory. It didn't happen for me in the US.
Got it.
So when I was starting the podcast, it was also trying to find answers to why we didn't grow
Mhm.
success in LA as a band, but we did in France.
Yeah.
And still living here, our career grew in France.
Wow.
They shot a documentary about us. They came to LA and we spent the whole week in the desert, and then we broadcasted on national
Wow.
TV. That we were, I don't know. And I can't explain that at all. That why. I have a theory, I guess, because we are that French band in the California desert, or
Right.
and that's something appealing and exotic, and we're just a couple, like people can relate. But
Of
here
course.
we're just like transplant, like many
Got it.
many other people, and but I can't explain, because we've played all those shows, bootleg
Yeah.
and everything, but I never felt anyone connecting to our music, like coming back to the shows and growing a fan base here.
Mhm.
And it's okay, it's and
No.
I'm glad that we have that somewhere else in the world,
Exactly.
and that we can still connect to people and grow and see it
Right, of
in
course.
the eyes of other people. But it's weird to me that I live here, and it's over there that we have more success.
Uh-huh. Well, the other side to that too is that that's not to say that it won't happen,
No,
next
of course,
year,
of course.
because it's like there is no science to this. So much is about timing, who is seeing it, when are they seeing it.
That's true too.
It's like, and I think that's part of what's intoxicating about music, creatively and I guess administratively. It's like you're always on the precipice of something, or you could be on the precipice of something, either your best song, your best work, or your most lucky, crazy thing that would ever happen to you. Like, I think that's part of what's special about this, is that there is no form,
Mhm.
to how people find you. And the fact that I think the important thing for you too is that people do adhere to your music and find something special regardless of where it is. So it's like, if it happened somewhere,
Mhm.
then that means that what you're doing has personal value to people.
Yeah, totally.
So it's like, it doesn't matter that it's only in one place so far. For us, it's strange because it's like the places where Dear Boy is the biggest, it's here in Southern California, in Latin America, but not in England, which is like the thing that we've never
That's
formally
fun.
played there, and you would think, well, we are pretty much one of the few bands that is like I would say the most outwardly influenced by, or so you would think that would be where we would make the most sense, but we have not had exposure in the UK like that yet. So I don't believe that it's like, well, we just don't click there. It's just that we haven't had a moment.
Yeah.
And I feel like the same with your band. It's like, that's the thing, is as long as there is forward movement, I think that's why we've also lasted as a band and also grown, both like in mature wise and songwriting wise, and like I feel like we are now only beginning to understand what this band is. Part of that is because we've had so much time to develop. We don't look at it like pass fail. I think that's the big mistake that bands make, and that the industry has conditioned artists to feel. It's like, oh, we didn't have a box office weekend. It's like, so we're worthless. Like, to look at things like that is so wrong and unfortunate, because when you think about, you mentioned Pulp earlier, and it's like, you look at Pulp, the amount of records that Pulp put out before His and Hers is like, what is it, like 4 or 5?
Yeah.
It's like, so we wouldn't have had Pulp. If
Yes.
that was happening now, it would have been like, well, this is useless. Like, this guy is, who cares? Like, this guy's weird looking. He's like lanky and tall, and like no one's gonna find him to be like a sex symbol or whatever. And like, that's that kind of criteria doesn't make sense. It's like Pulp had to develop. That band needed to figure out what it was going to do, and then when it did some of the most special stuff ever. And I think that if the bands need time, artists need time. Like, it doesn't make sense.
Look at Bowie.
Yeah. Oh my God. Like 19 different. No one's experienced more rejection than. But like, I watched this BBC documentary on him, and they interview the guy who taught him mime, and he was basically like, he was a terrible mime.
Yeah, I saw that.
You saw that?
Yeah.
And you're just like, well, God, David Bowie had so much rejection, and it's just like, it just takes time to figure out what you're doing. Like, you can't.
If you don't develop, you don't allow yourself to experiment.
Exactly.
And the experimentation will define something special.
Exactly.
Because if you don't have time to experiment, how can you come up with something special?
Yeah.
Because you can be very talented and just show your talent to the world,
Mm-hmm.
but how can you create a world around that
Exactly.
talent?
Exactly.
It's building world.
Exactly.
Again, another parallel with writing,
Mhm,
like
right.
fiction writing.
Exactly. I think the most important thing we learned coming back from England was what like the mission statement of the band was. It was like, I knew as soon as we had the name, it was weird. It was like a flood. It was just sort of like the floodgates open, and I knew what it looked like and what it sounded like and what it was gonna do. And that's kind of the most important thing, which is like the guiding principle of the project. And everything we've done since then has been very clear in terms of what we're hoping to achieve with every record and every song. And we labor over everything. Like, we labor over every image and every word and million. Thank you. I'm glad.
You curate everything.
Yeah.
Very detailed.
Yeah.
To me, you're a band of the night, and
Thanks.
very. I guess that's why goth imagery sticks to your band. I guess because you're cold, but at the same time very romantic, and and there's this imagery and that's why I was actually surprised at the beginning of the show, because you arrived and I was like, if I remember correctly, it was all blue lights, very cold, not very much light on the first song, and then I see the audience connecting instantly to that cold band arriving on stage, because you're not like putting on a show, like where with your persona, it's like you're delivering your music, and it's just great. You don't have to do tons of skits and
exactly. True.
But at the same time, you're not distant from your audience.
Thank you for saying
that. It
is
controlled. Controlled, I'm not sure it's the right word, but reserved.
Right.
There's a reserve, and I guess it's true to who you are too. But at the same time, not closed. It's very. You open a lot. You open people to your own fragility. I guess that's why they connect.
Thank you. I feel like, I think the band has a lot to do with dualities, and also like live experiences. I think just as a music fan personally, and how we all perform as authentically as we can, I bristle when I see too much of a hard sell. I mean, whenever there's a break from the authenticity of what is happening, I hate that. I hate losing what we're doing. It's almost as if like the artist sometimes tries to like overly curate something for the audience. Like we did talk about, like we curate imagery.
Force feeding.
Yes, exactly. For me, it's like all of the micro decisions and the curation that exists like within the making of the work, and then once you're performing, it doesn't belong to you anymore, and it's like the curation stops. It's like, I don't want to tell you to do anything. I don't like telling an audience to do anything. I don't want to hear, as far as a symbiotic relationship, what we're already doing is symbiotic. Like, you don't need me to then like instruct you to clap, or let me hear you do this thing. Like, that's just not what we do. Some bands that works
some
great,
bands, they do it perfectly,
and that is authentic
like
to them.
Dave Grohl,
Right.
It is natural, right?
It's who he is to his core, and what they're trying to do. I don't want to see Robert Smith do that.
No.
I don't want to see Susie Sue do that. It's, as long as it's authentic, it's cool. You know, if you're going to see Green Day play and they do that, you're going to be like, all right, cool. Like, whatever.
Yeah,
That's what's happening. Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm just babbling now.
No, sorry. I'm looking at my notes, and we're in 2013. And it's been an hour and 10 minutes.
Oh, cool.
That's okay. So we were at the Troubadour,
Mm-hmm.
and 2013 first show in LA. Do your stunt like we ever
Mm-hmm.
played perform.
Yeah.
Played the Troubadour. You got your first single out right after. Or
We put
did
our
you get
first
the
single
same-
right before, like a week before.
Oh So Quiet, and you got stations like KROQ, I guess.
Yeah.
I shouldn't say K-Rock anymore. And Alt 98.7 KCSN playing your song.
Yeah.
That must be
It was
crazy.
wild. It was wild. It was really wild. And it's a bunch of, to hear, there's certain DJs too where their voices are so iconic, and you've heard them say so many band names that have been formative to you, and then to hear them say yours is still like that. Like, I become friends with a lot of these people too. Like, Kat Corbett is a dear friend now, and Stryker, and these
Kat Corbett, she was doing locals only at the time, and you guys got like big things happening through that, right?
Yeah, she's one of the coolest, smartest. I mean, I adore her, but she was a stranger to me. We just connected, and we connect over B movies because we both love really bad movies. So we would always recommend each other and give each other DVDs for Christmas and stuff. But yeah, she took an interest in the band and really championed it, and then Stryker did the same, and Lisa Warden, K-Rock, who is now at Alt 98.7, but she was the music director, and she took a chance on us. They all took chances on us, and it was like, that's kind of the other thing too, is I feel so lucky. It's very validating when people who you admire and who know what's up tell you and show you that they back you, and this is like very powerful people who were taking chances on us when we had no label, or it wasn't the traditional artist radio relationship. Like, wherever there was a free moment, they'd put us on. Whenever if I was around, like, they would put us on this thing, or like have me interviewed or whatever, and like they were all rooting for us. So
that's amazing.
That kind of stuff is very special. So that was happening early, and it was a big deal.
That's great. And at this point, Lucy hasn't joined the band yet, right? She joined in 2016-17.
Yeah.
At the time we were recording the next EP, Parts of a Flower.
Yeah, we recorded Parts of a Flower with our ex bass player, who's still a dear friend, and we did that with a producer named Doug Boehm, who did these really great girls records, and he's a really, really talented person too. And that was the first time we ever worked with a producer, so that was exciting. And we made just a very interesting. It was just an interesting EP. Like, it was a very short amount of time. Like Forever Sometimes we recorded for 10 months, pretty much 6 days a week. And then this EP we made in like 2.5 weeks. And
wow.
It's weird when I think about that. It was the first time we ever recorded in a studio where all of our gear was there. We never moved it. Whenever we had an idea, we just go back into the room and just like same setup and do a thing. And it was just like we lived in the studio, and that felt crazy.
What was that?
We recorded, I don't think it even exists anymore. It's called Sonora. Yeah, Sonora Recorders, and it was in Los Feliz.
Okay.
And they had some really wonderful old boards and outboard gear, and nothing worked because they hadn't recorded there in a long time. And it was just it was a crazy experience. We didn't have a lot of money, so And I think mid recording we left to do some shows with Peter Murphy, which was crazy. So
Nice.
so the whole experience is very, and it was the hot summer, so it was just a very odd time, but we made a very interesting EP when we did that. But yeah, that was right before we met. We met Lucy. Here's the story about Lucy is that she and I used to go to the same coffee shop for years.
In San Fernando Valley.
That's right. That's right. And we had nicknames for each other, but we never met. We would see her with her ex-boyfriend. They were together all the time, and then my wife, we would just would circle each other, but we never said hi for years, 4 years. And then one time I just went up to her. We were both stirring at the same time, and I just was like, "Hi, I've seen you more than I've seen my own family. Who are you?" And we became friends first, and then she would come to Dear Boy shows, and then I found out that she played bass, and it was just the perfect time. We were kind of not getting along with our bass player, not personally, but music. It just wasn't right anymore. And she just jumped right in, and she's an incredible talent and such a fun person to be around. And I can't imagine the band without her.
Great presence too.
Great.
On the stage.
Oh, she's iconic. She's the weirdest person I've ever met. She is like a creature. But yeah, I honestly can't imagine it without her. She's incredible.
So that's when the lineup solidified,
Yeah.
and then you haven't changed since.
No,
right?
that is it. It can't. Dear Boy can't be the band without this lineup. It has to be this. It just has to. It wouldn't make any sense.
And that's why you need time to develop your band.
Exactly.
Find the right people too.
Exactly.
So after this EP, sorry, I'm going fast now, but I just don't
it's good.
want our listeners to be bored.
Right. Totally.
And I want to finish the journey of yours.
Yeah,
but that's
totally.
Really interests me. You did another EP, the Strawberry EP.
Yeah.
In 2019, it was released.
Yeah.
Right before the pandemic, and you had planned to record your album.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, you did kind of start recording the album in 2020.
Yeah, we did. When we did Strawberry EP, because our whole thing was that we would record a few songs and then tour, and then we'd make enough money to go record some more songs. So that's how we would work, and that's why it took so long too. Is that it was we were so in a trajectory of constantly touring, and then back for a couple weeks or a month and record.
Because you needed to tour.
Exactly.
That's your system.
Exactly.
That's how it works. Making money on tour.
Yeah.
Coming back, record songs, go back on tour to make more money.
That's how we did it.
Okay.
And so we always had songs, and we always were talking about our record. But I think part of it too is we had such a respect for the form that we didn't want to do it lazily or quickly. So we just kept talking. When we make our album, when we make our album. But yeah, we toured on the Strawberry EP for a year, and we had an incredible year. That's when we toured with Psychedelic Furs and James and Pete Yorn, and we did our first time in Mexico and those big festivals. And
how does that happen? That you're playing shows in LA, you're doing well, you're on the radio. How does the first tour happen, and how do you realize, that's a way then we can make our band sustainable?
We're just scrappy, honestly. We would know when something was happening, and we would just write them, or we would
Really? That works?
I mean, kind of. The amount of times it hasn't worked, you could really just fill a stadium. But with radio
amazing.
too, it's the same. Honestly, we wrote everyone. We started getting played in KCRW just because I wrote everybody. And 2 DJs played us, and then we got invited to play Morning Comes Eclectic after 2 years. But I just don't care. I don't have. I'm not I guess some people would probably describe me as a nuisance, but I don't care. I'm a pretty shy and a respectful person, but at the same time, when I believe in something, I don't feel as if I'm doing someone a favor by, I feel like you should want to hear. Everyone feels like that. There's an ego in that, but I do feel who cares?
You're ready to take your chances,
right? Yeah. So with touring, when we had our Rogue Wave tour, our publicist wrote them, and they just said, yeah, we like it. With Daywave, it was the same thing. Like, we've had a lot of experiences like that where we just write them or find them or talk to them.
Bam,
and
directly.
Like, yeah.
Not the booking agents.
No, it's better not to go. I mean, our booking agent would freak out if he heard me say that, but like, like with the Psychedelic Furs, what happened was we recorded The Ghost in You for a 7-inch.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
and
nice.
it got to them. And so this is 2017 or 2015, sorry. We recorded a 7-inch, and we found out they heard it and liked it, and that was it. But that was cool. And then they invited us to see them play one day, and we went and we met them, and they were really nice.
How cool.
But then years just went by, and then our agent at the time made it happen. They remembered who we were, and then they liked it, and then they were like, yeah, come. And that was the biggest tour we had ever done. And James was on that tour, and throughout the period of that tour, we became really close with those guys, and like now the Furs are friends. And now, when we played with them in November, this is what I'm saying, like earlier, like 5 hours ago or whenever we started this podcast, but like when you think about special, like singular events, like I just remember looking over mid-set at the Belasco, and Richard Butler is just side stage singing the lyrics to one of our songs. I'm just like watching him sing a Dear Boy song to me as I'm playing it, and I'm just like, well, this is the craziest thing. Like, there's nothing on earth that's more meaningful or cooler than that to me, and I wouldn't trade anything I've ever done for that exact
Those
moment.
moments justify everything.
Everything.
Somehow you get to your
Everything.
point to your life where you can interact creatively
Yes.
with Richard Butler.
Exactly.
And that's crazy.
It's crazy. So my advice to people are just take a shot always. Like, who cares? I think that's how we have everything, is that we would just ask. We still do that.
I was talking earlier this year with Courtney Taylor from the Dandy Warhol.
Yeah. Oh, amazing.
That was great. He was telling me when he toured with David Bowie, and how that he got on stage to sing songs with him. I was like,
yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Like that. Yeah, that is, I mean, that trumps everything. That's like the coolest thing I've ever heard in my life.
I had my little experience like that too in France. I don't know if you know that, but the biggest artist ever was Johnny Hallyday. Which was kind of a French Elvis.
Yeah, I know who that is.
Got to live longer.
Right.
And I wrote a song for him. Lyrics.
Get out.
It's not out yet. He passed away 5 years ago.
But that's incredible.
It's just the fact that we were able to have some experiences with him, and hang and have moments.
Incredible.
That was incredible. Yeah.
What a beautiful thing to experience in your life.
Yeah.
So that's it though. Like, that's the stuff.
Yeah.
That's what makes this magical.
And in LA it's like that when because sometimes you go to a party or somewhere, you never know what's going to happen. Not just in the sense that I'm going to see a star or whatever. Right. Not just that, because that would happen too. Absolutely. But the fact that anything can happen on any given day, because you're going to meet someone that you didn't suspect could interact creatively with you.
Right. Exactly.
And just like today, I'm very glad you came, because after Thesis, I guess I've never been so inclined to reveal so much about myself on that podcast in one interview.
Oh, really?
I said a lot of things today.
Same. Well, I'm honored. Like, I appreciate that. That means a lot too.
And I love that we're able to exchange and reflect.
Right.
And philosophize a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, I don't know where we were.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah, Richard Butler.
I mean, that tour we made, it was the most money we'd ever made that year, and we were able to afford to make a record for the first time. We were like, we've saved enough to where, because we didn't have an agent at the time, we had no manager, we just were like, no label. So we were like, we had sold so many records during all those tours that we had done, and that Mexico festival, that we were like, we were able to make our album finally. So we whittled it down from 40 songs, but we started we had recorded The Nominee and we recorded Heaven Moves because we were doing our old thing, which is like singles, whatever. And they were like, those are going to be part of the collection, but we need to make the collection. And Kevin Bronson made fun of us. So he's from Buzz Bands, and he said something honestly that is correct, and it was a compliment but also an insult. And I think about it all the time, and I haven't seen him in person since he said this to tell him how much it meant, though. But he said, it was when The Nominee came out, he was reviewing the single, and he said, "Dear boy, the only band to have never released a full-length record but could have a greatest hits record."
It's not an insult.
Yeah, it is, but I was
I
was like, whoa, dude, like that's perfect. I was like threading the needle of like get going. And we were already decided to make a record, but we couldn't believe that so much time had passed because we had just been a band.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we started recording February of 2020. We did Morning Becomes Eclectic March 10th of 2020. Then the world shut down.
March 10th.
Yeah, we were the last band to do it. And I remember we were in the room, we were in the studio, and we were like, should we shake someone's hand? Like, what should we do? And it was just a crazy vibe, and we already had basic tracks for a lot of the songs on this record done from our at Boulevard Recording, which is a great studio that our friend owns. And the world shut down, and we just sort of were like, well, let's track vocals for some of these songs, and then we'll see what happens in a few weeks. And that's what happened. And then we just recorded this album.
You kept recording, right?
From March to December. Yeah.
Every day? 6
days a week, 12 hours a day.
You have your own studio? Or work?
Our drummer has a studio in North Hollywood that he has great gear, and he's an incredible engineer, and so we had everything we needed to work.
That's amazing.
And so we basically just like left one quarantine for another because we only saw each other, so it was my apartment, and then I would go pick Keith up, and then we'd go to the studio, and then that would be it. And then we could be done, and we did it and then, I mean, Austin would come, and Lucy would come, and then that's how it worked for the whole year. And so I would send the songs to Tony Hoffer. When you mention Michael Patterson, Tony's the same. I mean, he's the greatest.
French bands.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly, yeah. Well, and when we were living in England, we had kind of a vision board, too, of just like, oh, God, could you imagine if Tony Hoffer makes our record? Like, when we started, we were like, how do we get to Tony Hoffer? How do we ask Tony Hoffer? And, well, we'll never be able to afford him. And it was a similar situation that you had with Michael, because he loved the band. And when I had a meeting with him at his studio, we bonded over like the Chameleons and all this music that he really loves but never gets to make. The music he makes now is, I could tell he was hungry to do something in our world. And when he started mixing our music, like, we knew he was just the perfect collaborator. It was just like, he's so talented, and he understands what we're trying to do, keep our music sounding organic, but also really hi-fi, and like so many layers of music and sound design that we do, trying to bring that to indie rock, I guess you would call it. He can handle it, because it's like the stuff he's made from Beck to M83. It's like he understands like sonic tapestry and like how to support like what's important in a mix, and he's incredible. And so we would send songs to him, and then he would send them back while we were tracking. And I wouldn't recommend that, because it breaks your brain to go from recording to then like having to analyze something you've made. Everyone knows what it's like any musician knows the feeling of being crestfallen when you receive a mix and it like breaks you completely, and then you try to figure out how to make it. It's an insane thing.
It can be daunting.
It's so it's
back and forth.
It's so, I think, not to get too deep into this, but like I always say that what's so the difference between recording and mixing, it's like recording is so fun and exciting because you're intoxicated by possibility, right? So it's like anything you can think of, anything you can do, you put in, you work, you do. It's like boundless possibility. But the mixing is you're confronted with the reality of what you've made. You're confronted with like, this is what I've done, this is what it is, that's it. And so it's hard. But with him, he's so incredible and such a great guide that he really elevated our music and brought it into a very cool place.
It's a great record.
Thank you.
You recorded so much material that you won't have to wait 10 years for the next one, right?
No, yeah, we're actually talking now about going into the studio in a week.
Oh wow!
To start. Yeah.
So, when did that happen? The connection with Last Gang record for this for Forever Sometimes? Because now you're not independent. You have a label record that's helping you with all of this.
We once we finished recording in December and we had it mastered, Christmas happened. We didn't have a manager. The world wasn't opening up yet. Obviously, it was 2021, beginning of 2021, and I just was like, well, let me just see. Like, I'll just play it for some people, and we'll see. We'll either put it ourselves or see if we can partner with somebody. It's that same sort of spirit of, I'm just gonna ask and see, you know.
Yeah.
So I cold called everybody. So I just, I bought a goddamn ring light and I zoomed a bunch of labels. Like I just like wrote them emails and I sent them links to the record, and I did it for a long time. And labels wrote me back. They were really nice people who, even if they passed, like they were I had a kind of a nice experience with that. Like everyone was cool, you know, like
feedback.
Great,
like
yeah.
Feedback,
and
not
everyone,
just ignoring.
Yeah, there was only
that will happen. But
that did happen, but a few, you know, like Glassnote, we had a great conversation. Those guys were great, and Daniel Glass was really nice. He wrote me personally. He was so nice, and I had Zooms with a lot of labels, and some of them were not great. Some of them asked me the wrong questions, you know, and talked about, whoa, what's up with this? Like, why is Spotify here? Like, why aren't, you know, whatever?
Mm-hmm.
But Last Gang didn't. I mean, aside from the fact that I just love that label, and I've always been a huge fan of that record label. I mean, Metric is one of my favorite bands, and you know, Crystal Castles and Death from Above and all those bands. Like when I was in high school, I was just like obsessed with that label. So when I talked to them, they just were like music kids. Like it just felt like being around people who I grew up with, who were into music because of music. Every question they talked to me about was the record. Everything they asked me about were lyric questions, vision questions. What do you want to do? What's this thing? And it was just like, it felt comfortable. And I just thought this is the right energy. Like, these are the right people. And the band felt the same way. And so we signed in summer of last year, but they made the offer I think like April of last year, and then it took like months to figure that out.
Of course.
Yeah.
It will take
but
time.
I love them. They're you know, they're boutique-y still and small, but like it feels like, I feel like we're doing something cool together.
That's great that you can trust another team to go
right.
in your lab, because
Yeah.
you've been building yourself for 10 years, and
Exactly.
now you have to let go a little bit of
Right,
things
so we're
and
talking about,
trust other people. That's what we were telling when we first met.
Exactly.
It's a beautiful album, and you said yourself it's a kind of a concept album about, I'm quoting you, about life after death and love after life and life after love.
Mm-hmm.
You also said it's a study in goodbyes.
Yes.
Which I love that sentence you made.
Thanks.
About your record. I wish I could have come up with it.
You use it all you want.
What can you tell me more about the lyrical journey of this record?
Yeah. I mean, I think we were talking earlier about how like the band explores a lot of dichotomy. I think it's like, you know, the first adjective that was ever described about the band is a bittersweet thing, which I know that is overused now, but like we deal in it's optimism for pessimists, you know, like I feel like there's a lot of, I don't know why I sort of gravitate towards that I think it's just, when I'm talking about goodbyes, goodbyes are so complex, and I feel like love is so complex. Whether that it takes songs and songs and records to truly kind of understand every nuance to every, like there's just so much in.
So your whole catalog is a study.
Pretty much, yeah. And I don't think I knew that until this record. Like I realized this sort of recurring themes and recurring kind of like a very firm perspective. Even though the emotional palette is like pretty vast, I feel like my perspective on that is clear, and I'm just like very intrigued by exploring like the paradox of closeness and like what it means to be close to somebody, what it means to miss somebody, what that is like. That is so endlessly fascinating to me that I can't not write it, and I think there's something that I haven't figured out about myself too, about why that means something to me. You know, like I like that feeling of being content, being sad. You know, like there's a,
yeah,
I don't know what that is, but there's a very specific frequency emotionally that I like to live in, especially when I'm writing something. And that's why our music, sometimes when it presents as pop or whatever, or if it presents in kind of an accessible melodic way, like I do like kind of Trojan horsing, like a melancholy sentiment, because I do think that those things they belong together. So in a way I feel like it is emotional balance, and you know, I don't know, but I feel like I'm always writing about goodbye, and I don't know exactly what is driving that, but I feel like it's something that I can't not write about.
I think listening to your record and hearing you now talking for an hour and 37 minutes.
Oh my God, I'm so sorry. I told you earlier that I'm going to live here.
I'm guilty.
No, you're not. It's me.
No, I'm having a great time. Listening to your record, now not knowing you too a little bit more, I think you're a very optimistic person, hopeful.
Yeah.
Maybe not hopeful. That's the point. I think there's a great sense of maybe fear of loss.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that's
the
core, like the fear of grieving.
Mm-hmm.
When I listen to the record, you say it's a study in goodbyes, not just like losing someone, like dying, but also like losing a bit of everything, or closeness, like you were saying, in a relationship. I don't know, part of yourself, identity-wise. It's always that fear that's driving everything that I heard about you. Is that correct?
No, it's interesting. Like I do really like to receive how other people, especially other creative people, interpret or receive like what I'm saying, because sometimes I don't know that about myself. I do think that like a lot of times, you know, especially with closeness, I think people feel, you know, there's something like the second song on the album, there's a song called On My Mind, and where it is probably the most outwardly melodic and I guess ostensibly accessible song on the record. It's like that song is about distance, you know, and it's like a lot of times, you know, you feel closest to somebody when they're not there, and you can never feel further apart from somebody lying next to them. And it's like, I think that the nuances of the human condition and how paradoxical all that stuff is so interesting. And I feel like, you know, I do agree with you that grieving, I do fear grieving, that of the people I know I will grieve, you know, like I know that that's a thing that it's weird. This is probably revealing way too much in a podcast, but like there was a major period of time where I would wake up every night the same time, and I would get up and walk around, and I just hit me that I would lose everybody, you know, like, which is not a pleasant thing that to think and to kind of process every night. But that was a thing when I was writing a lot of this music. Like, it was like an awareness that like, that is a part of this whole thing. That's a part of being alive. And I know everyone goes through that and everyone knows that intrinsically, but when I was writing, like, that was something I was processing. So when you mention fear of it, there is a fear. It's fear, but it's also kind of like a desire to procrastinate all that. Like, I'm just hoping to kind of like.
I mean, what I wanted to say is that there's more desire and appreciation for life.
Yes.
At the core of the music than
Yes.
I immediately thought.
Right.
By reading about your music, by the first perspective of it when I was talking about the goth imagery.
Yeah.
And that's why I said, okay, he's more optimistic in a way than
Mhm.
I saw. It's just that's not the world. What I wanted to say is, like, it seems to me that you leave
Mhm.
every moment to the fullest, and that you have an appreciation for the life you built
Thank
around
you.
this band, and that your ultimate fear is to lose.
Yeah. Well, that is okay. Yes. When you say it, yes, saying it like that is I receive that, and I do agree with that. Like, I do. No, I do. I mean, I feel like this is the most. This is like the most. This is the deepest I've ever gone in a.
Nice.
So you've done it again. No, but I agree with you, and I feel like I don't. Sometimes I need to shock myself into remembering that I am living in a present moment that is special, and I think we all are guilty of taking things that are beautiful for granted, and I think writing has helped me kind of sober myself up daily into this special experience, and like remembering that it is important to be optimistic, especially when confronted with realities that are sometimes not great.
Yeah.
Like, I would say that that's part of the band's mission statement too, is sort of like an awareness of what isn't great, but like a celebrating of the optimism in spite of all that, almost to spite all of that.
But that might be the biggest part of your success. Maybe people connect to that. They see that you're not just like shutting them down and just
Right.
offering just pure sadness.
Right. Right. No, that's not it. Yeah, that's definitely not it.
There's something. There's light in your music.
Thank you for saying that.
And it's a cold, it's a dark universe, but it's full of life and
Thank you.
love.
Thank you for saying that. That's very special.
I think I want to end on this, but there's something I wanted to ask. I didn't know where to put it.
Yeah.
Let's finish on this. Maybe
Please.
it's just going to be a bonus.
Please.
Can you tell us
Yes.
that story that I read?
Which
It was
one?
crazy when you met Rivers Cuomo from Weezer.
That's so funny. Yeah.
I read that and was like, oh, what?
Yeah.
What the fuck?
Yeah, I do. I've had some off microphone. I'll tell you a few stories, other stories too. But with him, okay. So my old band was touring with a band called AFI, and
And they're on the record, right?
Yeah. They're dear friends of ours. Two of them were groomsmen at my wedding, and they're just like big brothers to me. I met them when I was a kid, and they put me on their album like very early, and I was like obsessed with them. In high school, I was like obsessed with them, and I still think they're fabulous. And they're all musical. They're all just incredible music talents and beautiful people. They're great.
Talk about free music, like free people.
Oh yeah.
Creativity.
Yeah.
Freedom, creativity.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, absolutely. No, I agree. And they're I learned a lot from them. We're completely different genres, but they understand all music, and they're fascinating people. But so my band with Keith, Scarlet Grey, was on tour with AFI. We were playing a festival in Milwaukee, and
Sorry, I'm laughing.
I know. No, it was insane. No, it was absolutely insane. Like we had played our set that day, and then we were kind of hanging out, and I know that, and Davey had asked me, well, I think maybe I probably did my thing and demanded that I would sing songs with them, but like I would go out during one of their songs and I would sing like the second verse of the song and play in front of the whole tour. I was doing that, and so I was going to do it at this festival, but it would have been the biggest show I'd ever played in because they were playing in front of like 12,000 people or something. Wow. And it was storming rain. It was really sketchy, and I remember every time I would be hiding backstage and their tour manager Smith would leave a microphone for me next to like one of the ego risers, and it would always scare me because I could never see it. I just imagined every single time I would come out on stage, they would introduce me, I would come out on stage and there would be no mic and I would just be standing there. So I'm already really nervous because every stage, every time was like that. But their production manager, this guy named Narcy, who was super cool, I'm waiting for my cue, right? So they just started the song, or they're right about to start the song. No. Sorry, it was the song before, and so I knew their set list, so I knew that I was about to go up. And Narcy's like, oh, I want you to, he taps me on the shoulder, I'm side stage. He's like, I want you to meet Rivers. Because he was their production manager too. And I was like, oh, I got to go do this thing. Can you give me 10 minutes? He's like, no, he's right here. You'll love him. You got to meet him. So he pulls me back, and as I'm walking, this is a giant festival ground. So I'm walking down this corridor, but I'm hearing like the music's getting fainter and fainter. So I'm like so concerned that I'm gonna miss my cue.
Half of your brain.
Half my brain's here because I'm like, Davey Havok is going to like introduce me, and I won't be there. You know what I mean? Like it's so, and to the biggest crowd that I will humiliate them, and they brought this unsigned band on tour. But I'm like, so I'm coming down this like hallway, and I see Rivers Cuomo is kicking a soccer ball, like aggressively against a brick wall, and like the corridor is small, you know, it's like one of those like arena hallways. It's not that big, but he's just like kicking the soccer ball really hard by himself, and I get pulled over to him, and Narcy's like, hey Rivers, I want you to meet my friend Ben. And it's silence, you know. Rivers keeps kicking the ball, and I can sense like Narcy's getting tense, and he goes, Rivers, I want you to meet my friend Ben. This is Ben. Can you stop for a second? And so Rivers stops. He like puts his foot on the ball. He like is staring straight ahead, and then he turns to me, and he lets out this like banshee scream, as if he's like scared of me. Like it's this performative, fake, high-pitched scream that like reverberates through the hall. It's like jarring. I like went back, and then he like,
how embarrassing.
It was insane. And then he like jumps into like kind of like a catering like thing, like where they would like transport the food. He climbs in it and then like pretends he's in jail. So he like climbs in it and puts his hands on it, and then he like, this might be like revisionist history, but I seem to recall that he took a cup and kind of like raked it along like the bars of the thing. And I'm just staring there, I'm standing there staring at Rivers Cuomo, who I love, in this catering truck or catering case. And Narcy Narcy just says to me, he's like, yeah, maybe now's not a good time. And I'm like, oh yeah, you think? And so shit. I turn and I walk down the hall, and then I hear my cue. Oh. So I full sprint. With
that in mind.
So yeah, exactly. So I full sprint out, run, and then I hear my name, and so I sprint and then stop and walk, and I immediately come out to 12,000 people. I go over to the thing, my mic is there, thank Christ. I sing the song, I do my thing, I say goodbye, I put the mic down, I leave, and I walk out, and I'm just alone. And I just think, like, the last 3 minutes of my life are the most heightened, crazy of mine, like, ever. And then it's like, I rejoin my band, and I don't even know what to tell them. You know, it's like, they're like, hey, I'm out, how'd it go? It went great, whatever. And I was like...
It makes me laugh a lot, this story. Just you, like, being in that position.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I find it very sad for Rivers Cuomo, for him. Where are you in your mind when suddenly you cannot interact?
Yeah.
The only thing you can put is this kind of happening show, because it makes me feel that he's he doesn't want to meet more people at this point, at this
Right.
time.
Yeah.
Like, he probably is like, I had enough, you know?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, honestly, I don't know what was happening. Either that, or it was like a Prince thing where he just wanted to give me a story. You know,
Yeah,
like I don't know,
maybe
like
maybe that.
I don't know. I don't know what was happening.
Yeah.
But later in life too, because Chad Bamford, who did our first EP, he did all those Weezer records, so he had a bunch of River stories too, and they got along great. But he was just like interesting, you know. He had some very interesting interactions, and it made me think like, oh, mine is not.
Yeah, it's not
like
an isolated
yes
incident.
Yeah, there's definitely stuff like that. So yeah.
Well, thank you so much for telling me
Yeah,
that
sure,
story.
no problem.
And now we can stop.
Cool.
And thank you so much, Ben, for being that amazing guest and willing to spend time with me and the people who are listening to us.
Thanks so much, man, for having me. It was a real pleasure.
And I would like to throw a song from the record at the end of the podcast.
Oh.
Which one would you like our listeners to discover?
Oh my god. Let's do Wet Clothes. That'll be a good one.
Perfect. Let's listen to it now.